This is the third of the windows that we're looking at, and in some ways it's one of the most beautiful, I think, in terms of how it works with the colours and the pictures, but it's also quite a hard one to fathom out. It's basically the stars and the signs of the zodiac in a great arc, which rather wonderfully echoes the arc that we had, the rainbow in the sky. And then underneath it, there is the Ark of the Covenant being carried in the wilderness. So we're in the Exodus story. There's Moses walking along beside it in front of the ark. We're told that Miriam and her maidens are there, and they're playing their tambourines and they're dancing and celebrating. And then behind the ark bearers come warriors and a young baby with a nursing mother and a shepherd and cattle. So there's a bit of a sense of not just the people of Israel being led behind the ark, but perhaps almost all of humanity. And there, in the very foreground, you've got a great swathe of hard, barren rock, but even that is springing to life in places with patches of flower and foliage.
Do you know what I'm wondering there, as I'm looking at it, I wonder whether he's sort of taken motifs from all sorts of different stories and they're sort of run together. So with Miriam and the tambourines and the celebrating, we're inevitably drawn back to the story of the Exodus, and we're thinking about the celebrations and the thanksgiving they had when they'd just been led through the parted sea. But we're in the desert, and they're on this other stage of their journey. They've been given the 10 Commandments, which are being carried in the Ark of the Covenant. But then in the third window, that family there, I can't help but see Mary and Joseph and Jesus.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's interesting. Again, you, in a sense, this picture to me is about the journey,
yes,
about all the different journeys that can happen, and yet
yes,
they're all taking place under this incredibly beautiful night sky.
Yes, it's sort of the canopy of heaven, isn't
yes,
it? And all of our wanderings,
yes,
are kind of held underneath that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and it's I suppose it's one of the windows that I think does have a real sense that people are moving from right to left.
It's not static at all, is it?
And the sky itself, you get that, because it's that arc, you get the sense that the stars are moving overhead as well. So there is this real sense of progression, but also of mystery, I guess.
Yeah, it's actually quite dark, isn't it? I think because they are travelling at night.
Yes.
It is quite a dark picture, and yet at the very top, those stars are really bright, aren't they?
They are.
I love the way that I don't know how he's created that.
No, it is amazing, and quite subtle, because it's lots of blues and indigos, and they're just. You actually have to look quite hard to suddenly see that all the signs of the zodiac are actually drawn in really great detail.
Yeah, I wouldn't have seen those. I've never noticed those. I've just sort of seen sort of bits of turquoise.
Yeah.
And actually, when you look, you can see all the different the faces of the creatures.
You have, yeah, absolutely. You've got the twins, and you've got the ram, and everything. A huge amount of detail thrown into it. And I think you're right. It is. Not least because on the other side of the chapel from this window, there are windows with the life of Christ.
Yeah.
And the first one we'll come to is the Nativity. It's very difficult not to read.
Yeah.
Not to read that as Mary and Joseph and the baby. And another sense of wilderness, I guess, and another sense of having to run. But this is also quite a stately procession.